We've all fallen into boring routines. We just keep doing what has to get done. Isn't it time to escape the old routine and make time for yourself? Make time to go out with old friends. Make time to add excitement back into your life. Make time to feel like a winner again. Life is more fun when you live it. So what are you waiting for? Escape every day at Wind Creek Casino and on the Casinoverse app.
You thought about their and support them and thank them.
WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, home of Southern sports and talk. Noonan, Sharpsburg, Franklin. The views and opinions of this show and program are not the views and opinions of this station, its management, or its clientele. It's now time for Heart to Heart Radio, presented by Connecting Hearts Network, connecting women to one another and resources. Now here's your host, Margie Conway.
Hi, I'm Holly Reese. I'm the founder of Warrior Defenders. I'm a certified tactical self-defense instructor, and I specialize in women's self-defense. I teach technical drills for survival skills and education on self-defense tools and how to use them. My journey started in self-defense because I'm a domestic violence survivor. I'm here to empower women, to teach them how to be their own heroes, and to learn today to have a safer tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Pina Payne with Contour Mortgage, and we're so excited. We have just moved to this new company, and we are located at 560 Noonan Crossing Bypass in Noonan next to Art and Jake's, and we have some great products. Our interest rates are better than any other companies, and we also have some great products for the VA. We can do a better deal for you with fees than any other company. We have a lot of different kind of programs.
This is Margie from Connecting Hearts Network. I'd like you to take just a moment and listen to Linda Kirkpatrick explain to you what Family Patterns Matters is all about.
Family Patterns Matter works with youth and their families to help overcome barriers that prevent their success. We meet twice a month with mentoring, tutoring, teaching life skills, resilience, gratitude, and kindness. We also bring music and art therapy. Please visit our website at www.familypatternsmatter.org.
Shopping for insurance doesn't have to be stressful. I'm Christy, owner of Ellsworth Insurance, located here in Noonan, Georgia. We're an independent agency with access to multiple carriers for home, auto, life, health, and commercial insurance. We're your one-stop shop for your insurance needs. Visit our website at www.insurewithellsworth.com or call the office at 770-755-7053 to schedule an appointment. We look forward to meeting you soon.
Moving is a big decision. Selling or buying a home in any market, but especially today's, can raise a lot of questions. Hi, I'm Amy with Killingsworth Realty. My husband Todd and I serve the Coweta and local area. Our purpose at our first meeting is to learn your goals, answer questions, and provide resources so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. Find us online at killingsworthrealty.com or call 678-525-0047 to schedule a free consultation today to discuss your real estate needs. You don't have to do this alone.
I'm Margie Conway, and this is the Connecting Hearts Network program. We thank you for joining us today. Today we have Debbie Gronner, who is the founder and director, more or less, of Women at the Well. Women at the Well is a ministry that is based in Peachtree City, Georgia, that I've become familiar with over the last year. And a big part of that ministry is women getting together and sharing their stories with each other. Thank you for joining us today, Debbie.
I'm so glad to be here. So grateful for the invite. Thank you.
We met Debbie a couple of months ago when we went over to visit from a friend. And so, God puts people in my path and I just have to get them on here and share their stories with you. So Debbie, you are, I know you've written a book about your story. I have it in there on our bookshelf, and I know that you share it often in what you do, but tell us a little bit about what is Women at the Well.
Okay, I'd love to share that. So the Women at the Well is obviously based on the John 4 scripture. And, all women have been or are that woman at the well.
Right.
And as if any of you are familiar with that scripture, it's all about grace. Mm-hmm. And we've all walked through some stuff in our life. And she learned that there was no condemnation from Jesus. And so our ministry actually has been in existence for over 6 years. We are a nonprofit now for the last 3 years. We are connecting women on the first Thursday night of every month through stories of hope from brokenness to redemption. We also have annual retreats. We've begun a couple of programs a year for the community, one being the suicide training intervention that we did in January.
Right.
And then we also have a raising awareness of human and sex trafficking in August. And then we are implementing other programs, just meeting the spiritual, mental, and emotional needs for women. And so, for instance, we started last September a Young Women's Connection, and that's just blowing me away, and how these young ladies are starving for that connection. Really
You're
more
right.
than I ever really thought,
And that's where we come from. Is our tagline with Connecting Hearts is connecting the hearts of women to resources, inspiration, and one another.
Yeah.
And so that's both of these have been born out of trying to help the women connect and feel that they belong and learn where they belong at.
That's right. Yes. And so we're just slowly beginning to implement programs that I believe God has given me a vision. It's a download of so many needs, right? It's what you're doing in your ministry and Hers Journey and helping others. And we just implemented several months ago a program for support for women that have lost children. A big need for that. And that's
right. I've encountered several of the ladies lately that I have referred there. I don't know if they're coming out yet.
Yeah. So, well, prayerfully they will. I hear that that's going very well. So sorry for all of their losses. I can't imagine. I don't want to know that. I know a lot of experiences, but not that one. And then we're about to launch a single moms group.
That's needed.
And to include their children.
Right.
So I've got a young lady that's going to take the lead on that, and then we have, and there's just a lot coming,
Right.
But yeah, so thank you for asking. We're excited for the growth and where we're headed, and like you, Margie, we're just working for the kingdom to make an impact on these women, and that's my heart also, is just for the broken, and for all broken, that passion is for the women.
Right.
Yeah.
You do a great job with that. I know when I came into the first meeting, I was greeted with a rose and someone standing at the door. And, from the minute you walk in till they walked out, they were loved on. And so you do a great job with that. And the friends that we have in common that had brought us together, I know just from what she has said of working with you and being involved with your ministry, it's made a huge difference in her life and in many others. Yeah. Tell us how you came to Women at Well.
Sure, I would love to. It might take a minute, but
that's okay. We got plenty.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of go to my backstory a little bit. That'll help us come back to the present. But I, as a child at 12 years old, I lost my brother. He was 8 and got tragically hit by a car. And he was my only sibling. So we started into that life without him. My mom, and God bless her, I can't even imagine. I don't know how I would handle that. So at a point I was angry with her, but no more. I certainly don't, condemn that. So she just took everything out of the house as though he were not there. And so we did a little grief in the very beginning, and then there was no more. We didn't talk about it. We didn't, so I carried that for a lot of years. So that was just kind of the beginning of some dysfunction in my life. And then at 19, rather than going to college, I chose to marry a young man. Of course, thought I was madly in love with him. And 6 months later, he left. And I thought we were still honeymooning, so he left. And then I had become a believer when I was a child. I was very involved in youth groups or high school. But when that happened to me, I was so traumatized over that I, rather than leaning into the Lord, I moved towards the world and what he was doing. I was very obsessed with him. So I was diving into drugs and alcohol and promiscuity and chasing him, and it was just all sick. I'm sorry.
I said many women do that.
Yeah, we do. We're looking for those needs in the right places, right? And so then it wasn't, probably another year that I then met the father of my children. And, thought, okay, well, that looks like that's going to be a pretty good relationship. And just fell right into 15 years of an alcoholic situation.
Right.
And so I went through all that abuse. And then, but as I said, I had just really walked away from the Lord through those times and kind of put him on the shelf, so to speak. And then there was my husband was a functioning alcoholic. So he worked hard. He made really good money, and I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. But on the outside, it looked like we had everything.
Right.
2 beautiful daughters. We had the large home. We had all the big toys, So outside looking in, it was like, they just looked like a great family when we were just so depleted and abused and just really beaten down on the inside. So there was a day when he was at work, kids were at school, and I just had this turning point. I was standing in my kitchen. I can remember that like yesterday, and saying, I have to have more than this. This is not making me happy. This is not taking care of our lives. And so then I just started reaching out to God and saying, I need to come back, and God is so gracious. He waits on us. He's patient, he's gentleman, So that was the beginning of events of me becoming more involved with the Lord. However, it was a journey because I continue to have one foot in the world and one foot in the kingdom,
Being there.
Yes. So I got back into the church, got my kids in the church, and just one thing after another, God would just kind of tap me and say, well, go serve here, go serve there. I had a couple Sunday school class one day, and I started looking around. I'm like, I'm the only single person in here.
Right.
And then the Holy Spirit just tapped me and said, go start a singles class. And so like that day I went to our pastor and I said, I need a room, so that was just kind of the beginning of what I look back now and learning to just always, many times being obedient to a call. And so that I started that class, and then eventually I was asked to lead a codependent group, learning a lot about me through that, And then I was asked to be a Stephen minister leader I did that for like 10 years. So anyway, he was preparing me for something more. I didn't know, of course. And then so after my second marriage, I was still, kind of diving into a little bit about neediness for men. And I was in a relationship, and then the Lord just told me to put that relationship down. And it was really hard for me to do that. But when I did, then I got to that place where I was totally content with the Lord, and I was okay with my being alone with him, my children, and my career. And if it's where you want me for the rest of my life, I'm okay with that. Well, as God would have it, about 7 months later, he brought me my godly soulmate.
Right.
So, married him. I was married to him for a beautiful 15 years. 4 of those years was his cancer battle, and so I lost him 14 years ago. But in the midst of all that, even while we were married, kind of earlier in our marriage, I would hear God tell me from time to time I was going to do something in the community that had to do with care. And of course, that's all I got, right?
Right.
And so once I came out of that, becoming a widow and kind of starting to heal from that some, then in 2000, so I lost him in 2009. In 2014, by that time, I had lost all my immediate family members, including my mom and my aunt, like in the year before. And I had taken like 8 years taking care of my husband and my aunt, So in 2014, I just decided it was time to take care of me. And I was working a job in my career. And just through several circumstances, I had hired a Christian coach to help me with my business production. Right. And God used him to coach me out of there. And so through all that, and one of the questions he asked me was, what are your dreams?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very emotional time because all my dreams were wrapped up in my husband.
Right.
And so I didn't know, looking at the future, what that would hold. And so he just really began to stir in me. And eventually he called me out of that business after 24 years.
Yeah.
And I stepped out in faith. I didn't have income. I didn't have benefits. I was 60 at the time, but I just said yes. And so he took me to, there's Oceans is my favorite, my life song, actually. And one phrase in there, it says, Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters.
Right.
And so there were no borders when I walked out of that job. I had no idea what I was going to do, except I did know that he led me to a pastoral care training to become a chaplain. Right. So I did go through that, got a certification. There was always also a lot of healing at the hospital where I was doing that. My husband died there. I had to go back and revisit that room, but God just did an amazing work in that. And then my other family members died and transitioned from there to hospice. So there was just a lot of memories in that building. But he was just doing what he needed to do to take me through the rest about healing. And then when I got the certification, I thought I was really going to hospice chaplaincy. It was kind of what I was drawn to. Right. And then he said, no, you're done here. So it just kind of kept taking me on a journey, doing some other things. And I was actually sitting with women that were transitioning to end of life, and just there were just so many things that he was just still preparing me. So then probably sometime later in 2015, I heard him. Well, everywhere I looked or read or listening, everything was about the woman at the well. So, it's just becomes like this billboard flashing. I love that, Right. And so he, anyway, I'm like, okay, I get it, and then he began to kind of really lead my heart as to what we're going to do. And we started for several years really just doing those stories of hope every that first Thursday night. And then but even in prayer, there was a time in prayer that I felt like he was screaming at me. He doesn't scream at us, but he was screaming the name of the ministry. And he even put on my heart some women to connect with. Some of them I didn't know. Yeah. I knew of them. But I just called them and I said, God needs me to meet with you. I'm starting this ministry. And, one of them actually came on board on our team with us. And then another one I hadn't connected with over 30 years. And she came on our team. So I just love the sovereignty of our God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's how it came to be.
Well, and there's a couple of things that came out while you were telling your story that I keep encountering with other people sharing theirs over and over. Is first of all, whatever he has carried us through is what he uses in us to reach other people. Right. So you have a lot going on with the different marriages that you had and with what you went through and with women just at different seasons of life. I mean, you've encountered your own journeys through those seasons so you can help other women. That's one thing. With my own history is I used to kind of feel like maybe I had a little bit more than my share of some of it. and now I can look back and say, well, if I had not been through this one, I couldn't help this one. And,
exactly.
I can go through that. And the other thing, major thing that you said is God spoke and you obeyed. You took that step. Yeah. And sometimes those steps can be scary. When you don't know what's going to happen, but you have to have a faith in God that He's going to lead you through it. That's right. We have to just be willing to take a step out.
We do.
And I teach with our ladies in one of our groups all the time that when we are standing at the bottom of the staircase and we know our goal is at the top, that's scary. We might not make it up there. All we really have to focus on is that very next step, and then the very next step, and the very next one. Because you said God started showing you different things and talking to you about what He wanted to do, but you didn't know exactly where you were going with it. That probably would have scared the daylights out of you if He had told you way back then, you're going to be doing this now. Yeah.
I wasn't ready yet.
Right.
Exactly. He knew I wasn't ready. Yeah. And so the waiting just be, my little phrase that I came up with is be still in the wait. Right. because we have to wait on him and not step in front of him. And so I think once we make that first step into obedience to him for a call, and one of the things is that Scripture says if he trusts you with the little things, he'll trust you with the bigger things. So I feel like for my journey, that's all those small things that I was leading in and facilitating. He was just maybe testing me a little bit, what I'm going to do with that, before he would call to this. But one of the things I didn't mention in my story is I also, in my young adulthood, I had an abortion. So that's just another piece of it. I just say that because I want somebody to hear that if they've gone through that, considering that, I want you to talk to somebody before you do. But there's no shame, no condemnation, because God has forgiven that, and that's a strong thing. That's very serious for a lot of women, The other thing is like I said, it's in kind of coming around what you mentioned earlier, is that the whole thing is about taking your pain to passion to purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when we walk through that pain and just what are we so passionate about, like I know you are, and I am just so passionate because of the brokenness I've experienced, to be able to empower, as we're encouraging, empowering, and inspiring women to kind of step into their own with the Lord. And anyway, it's such a beautiful thing to see the impact of that God's making, because we're just a vehicle. He's just using us, And but the obedience thing, what I want to say, it's not easy.
No.
And there's so many times. There's times, as a matter of fact, about a month ago, I got overwhelmed, and I'm like, God, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. And I just wanted to be. I wasn't done, but I just wanted to be done. And then there are new mercies every morning. So I get up the next day, and He's got me. He's got you. He's got anyone that's listening, and He's going to carry us through. And He equips us, and that. One thing, and I know you've learned too, when you step into that obedience, and every step that you take, you don't really know where you're going with it, but you just keep listening. And for us, He has put so many women in my path that are coming alongside to help the ministry in some form or fashion. And it's connecting. And I get excited when I'm going to meet a woman for the first time. I just ask God, what is the agenda for this meeting? Because there's always something. Some need help. Some want to come alongside and assist in the ministry. Some just want to connect you with someone else. You never know,
Oh, it's a grand adventure. And I just love going out and having God appointments. I mean, there's been so many times that I had, to me, unexpected meetings with people that, I know God had already planned out, and just the way that has happened. I think that's part of my favorite part, is just being able to see what's around the corner and what's coming up next.
Yes.
It's, and it is scary. If anybody had told me 2 years ago you're going to be on the radio, I would have been, no, you're out of your mind. It's not happening. And it's but God has His plans, and when we do step out and we start on that journey, it's just an amazing adventure to see what it is. And no, not every step's easy. Some of them's very difficult.
It is.
Yeah. And I had kept my story quiet mostly for about 50 years. There was even family members that did not know I had put children up for adoption. And when I did start opening my mouth and telling that story, that's when women started coming forward. So sharing stories is extremely important, because when we are dealing with our stress and our trauma and whatever difficulty that's in our life at this minute, so often we feel that we're isolated and we're all alone. And we can just take a little step out from that, and there's people all around. God has put somebody there to assist you with that. So sharing stories is so important.
Yeah, they are powerful.
Yes, absolutely.
It's testimony.
Yes.
They're so powerful, and being authentic and real. And like you said, if you hide what's happened to you, then who are we preventing to
Right.
hear a story that will change their lives.
Oh, right. And I did for a long time, because there's a lot, not just what other people did to me, but bad decisions I made myself that I didn't want to share. And, I know that I did very good work when I was a church secretary for a long time. And I know that what I did in assisting those pastors and in the teaching and ministries I worked in, that it was an effective work for God. But I was still closed off in a big portion of myself, that it wasn't, I don't think, anywhere as near effective as what I do now. And that's because what I have done and what I have been through, God has healed me.
Yeah.
And I've handed it up to him and said, use it however you want to do it. And I've looked at people in my life, like my grandmother. She was a mover and a shaker. That woman could get stuff done. And the best thing she did for me was put me in a private school when I was small, because she wanted me to have a good education. And it was a Christian private school. And I had to go to church because I went to the school. Nobody in my family went to church. Nobody was involved in anything like that at all. But it gave me the foundation, and that, I was saved there, and I learned who God is and what happens from there. And I would look at my grandmother and think, if she just got saved and turned that moving and shaking towards God, what could she accomplish? And, she didn't. She got saved in her 70s, and then she came down with Alzheimer's. So she didn't really get out and get to enjoy doing anything for the Lord. But all that time I thought I was, and until I totally surrendered, I was not as effective as I could have been. So it took me till I was in my 50s to become that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And every day, I pray over this program and over the women that come through, and to focus it on the Lord and what he'd have us to do. So I know that is the way that you've run things there, that's the basis of what's going on, because it is showing fruit and it is expanding.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you invite women in to share their story on that first Thursday. I know that there is Zoom if people cannot be there in person, but you have opened other groups and other ministries up.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about some of them?
Sure.
And
yeah, so I'll just kind of go back to that Young Women's Connection.
Right.
And it's just the second Saturday of every month in the morning at a Rooted Cafe. Right now is where we're holding it in Peachtree City. And it has just been unbelievable watching these women come in. Many don't know each other. They just start right off just sharing from their hearts and being authentic. And I'm like, these young women are really, there's so many of them with PTSD, that they're struggling, they're anxious, and I'm thinking, was I like that when I was back there? But yeah, it was, because I had young children. I was in an abusive situation, So it's just a really great reminder. It doesn't matter the age, that all the women need that connection, So anyway, that's just been a really beautiful thing. I've got two leaders that take that lead, and they're awesome. So Becca and Aisha. And then I had mentioned we started the women that have lost children, and Pat Ellsbury has taken the lead for that for me, and then Kimberly Massengale is going to start this single moms group, and they just need connection. As we move on to implementing other programs, it's more about the specific needs. Right. And then everybody comes together on that Thursday night, and then our retreats, all, groups will come together.
Tell us about your retreat, because I have been hearing about it lately. Tell us about your retreat.
November 10th to the 12th is going to be a weekend full of grace and fun and just camaraderie and fellowship and learning and growing together. Some music, and it's going to be at the Calvin Center in Hampton. And so we'll be putting out that save the date. We'll start planning it in May, and then we'll just have more information coming out. But anyway, they're a lot of fun. Like I said, we've been doing that for 6 years. Yeah. And it just, the impact that comes out of that, and some of the women they come completely transformed through that weekend. So we just love doing that. And then, like I said, the human trafficking, just raising awareness on that, and then the suicide training, intervention training was in January. It was phenomenal training by Luke Coon.
Right. I've been through that. I went through it at a local church that had it last year. I couldn't make yours because of another obligation, but I know people who were there.
Yeah.
That is very powerful training.
It is. It's just so needed. I mean, I think between the suicide and the human trafficking, sex trafficking, that's probably the most prevalent in our communities, in the Atlanta area and our community beyond. And so we're just excited to just want to extend to the community. And we're also, as we build, we're looking and praying for our own space to do so much more and have workshops and, whether it's financial workshops, legal workshops, there's so many things women need, whether it's some type of a spiritual workshop, Bible studies, prayer groups, or whether it's a workshop on those who are married to narcissists, those that have been through sexual abuse, those have been, and you're doing some of that too. So there's just so many different groups needed. And so we're just really excited to be able to expand all of that, It's just, it's so humbling.
Right.
It's such an honor. And you said something earlier I wanted to touch on as I tell people after my husband passed away, after I got some years past that, and that I would not be in this journey and have the humble honor to serve the kingdom as we are doing if he were still alive.
Right.
I know that.
Right.
And so God just, that Romans 8:28 takes all the bad, the hard stuff and turns it into good. If we'll let him.
If we'll let him.
That's the key.
Part of her journey, it teaches that God is a gentleman. He can do so much, but he does not force us.
Yeah, that's right.
That we have to let him. Like I said, I thought I was doing great, and everybody else around me thought I was doing great, until I wasn't doing great, and had to deal with everything I hadn't dealt with. So it's important when you're talking about the stories and the connection. We've already touched on so many women, they feel unconnected, they feel alone in what they're going through. And I used to, as I said, I felt like I had my share in somebody else's, and if somebody wanted to whine at me about something, I was going to say, wait a minute, you don't know what you're talking about. But my eyes and my heart has been opened to that. Now I have empathy, and I understand that what the person to the left of me is going through is different than what the person to the right of me is going through, but it's just as important to each one of them. And it's to have a space, and you starting the separate groups for the women to come to. I know when my husband and my daughter were trying to help me through my breakthrough, that was a breakdown at the time. Yeah. They did everything they could. I mean, they were so good. But I was hurting so bad from the adoptions and from being a birth mother that gave their children up. And they didn't have any idea how to try to help me. And my family, my husband found a support group in North Atlanta that met once a month. And so he drove me up there until the first time I sat in that room and people were sharing their stories. And it was adopted children, adopted mothers, and birth mothers. And people were sharing their stories. And I was like, okay, I'm not by myself. Somebody else does understand, something about it. And so the power of people's stories are just tremendous. Yeah. It's if we hold this stuff in us, a lot of times we let it fester and we don't heal from it. But when we let it out, that's when God can do something beautiful with it. Now, you wrote a book about yours.
I did.
How did that come around?
God put a book in me a lot of years ago also. Actually gave me the title of it, which is I Got This, God. That title was given to me probably over 25 years ago. So I've just held on to it, and just like everything else, there just came a time, I just knew it was time in my spirit, to write that. And And I think the time, well, I know the timing was right according to him, because I had already birthed the ministry, and kind of we were into it for 2 years maybe, not long, but to kind of come to the fruition of the healing. Not that I don't ever need to be healed anymore, because I'm never done, right? But had done so much of that healing to a place where I could really sit and write that. And it was just a beautiful several months in that, just spiritually, and I one of the chapters in my book was about my ex-husband and the abuse, and quite frankly, after writing that, I went to a dark place for a couple of days.
Oh,
because
yes.
It was a dark time in my life. And it took a minute to really recognize and go, oh, well, the enemy just loved that I just did all that and went back there. And so he's like, okay, let's keep her here, And so I just finally recognized that, okay, we need to just clean this out, and get back to the Lord. And then writing about my husband and his illness, and that was I think probably the longest chapter in my book, and it took me the longest in one day to write it, but I wanted to get past it so bad. I just kept persevering. I think I wrote for about 8 hours that day, which was and that's hard for me, because hard for me to focus for that long, But I was, but it was just another thing. It was therapeutic writing,
Right.
And I just pray it wasn't to make money. I just pray that it has a impact. It's really an extension of the ministry,
Right.
Because it's very similar to what I've just told you here today.
Yeah. It's and when you talk about you went to a dark place for just a little while you went through that, is we do that in layers. It takes us a healing is a journey. It is not a destination. And it does take us a while to go through that. One thing we do in her journey is we say that's through the valley. We want to go through that valley and up that mountain to the light. We don't want to camp there. Yeah, we don't want to stay in it. And one way to stay out of it is to share it, whether it's through the book, through the radio, through the ministry with the ladies, all the different things going on. So what's coming up next?
Let's see. What part of the month are we in? I think the next one will actually be our in May the 4th is the next Women at the Well Stories of Hope on that Thursday night. Okay. So that's what's coming. We also have a committee meeting tomorrow that we're starting to plan our second barbecue and silent auction.
I heard about that last year.
It's coming up in October.
Okay.
So we're excited about that. So I just have to, but yes, May 4th is the next one. And for anyone that might be interested, womenatthewell.us is our website. And that way, if someone wanted to jump on there, they can email me from there. If they want more information or want to be part of our contacts, email blast or Facebook, can just pull them in. And we have a private group for that. So it's where all the announcements go out. And I wanted to share my life verse.
Yes, please.
One other little piece of my story.
Yes, ma'am.
So back in the late, I think it was actually in 91, January of 91, and I had just come out of my divorce. I had just started a commission job, and I ended up down on my back for 8 weeks. And I literally could not stand, and I actually had to eat laying down in the bed. So it was pretty painful. And so this was just right after I had started moving back to the Lord, and leaning in Him. And so when I was down on my back, He actually began to show me one of my gifts was prayer. Okay. And I didn't know that. And I ended up praying. I had another friend that was going through the same thing as I was, and I would say ironically, but that was really God designed. Mm-hmm. And so I was calling her and praying for her, and when she was in the bed too, and then just really started reading and learning more about that learning that dependence on God. And when I just really wasn't able to do anything. I had 2 young children that were, fortunately, I had a community, people coming in and helping and take care of them, because I couldn't do anything for them. And actually, I was in Al-Anon for several years, and I had an Al-Anon group come bring a meeting to my bedroom one night. So it's just beautiful to see how God, or appoints all that to happen around you. But anyway, but during that time, that's when He gave me my life verse, and so many know it, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. And that has truly been my life verse. He has always had the hope and the plans for all of us, and just learning how to move into that and be obedient and listen and be still. But also I learned, just thought lately is so many times we get so anxious about what's coming, or what we don't even know it's coming, or something we're praying for, or our heart desires, that we can get so caught up in that that we forget to be present and embrace where we are, and what can I do for the Lord today? How can I be, we're learning, we're praying, I had used this the last time on Thursday night. We do that story of hope, and then I always do a little bit of a message at the end. And my message was looking at what Jesus did when He knew that what was coming. He actually knew what was coming, but He didn't get so focused on that and dwell on, oh my gosh, this is going to happen, because He asked the Father to take that cup from Him. But He was more focused on what He could do then. He was teaching, He was discipling, He was praying, He was listening, He was encouraging, He was healing, He was calling out spirits. So that's where we need to be in our daily, every day, while we're waiting on, I'm expecting the unexpected and unpredictable, because we serve a very big God.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I'm learning more, and that's a phase I've been at. Anybody that listens to me even once or twice knows I've had all these foot surgeries lately, and it has slowed me down. Somebody, when I had the one in January, one of the guys at church said, how are you dealing with that as busy as you are? But for the last year and a half, I've been slowed down with the foot problems and things, and I've had to not rush ahead of God, which I have a tendency to do. And I remember on our anniversary party here at the center, I was frustrated because we had so much going around. And I had to sit in a chair in one location most of the time because I was still on the scooter, knee scooter. And I wanted to be in here with the ladies and over there with the ladies and over there I wanted to be in the middle of all of it. But as I sit there, I was able to observe one of the ladies who had come into our ministry with lots of doubts and lots of things from a teenage incident that had made her faith in God waver. And she has since then reconnected. And I got to see her talking with someone else. And I got to see a different group over here and hear their conversation, and a different one there. And I'm sitting there in my chair thinking, okay, God, this is what you had planned. This is awesome to be able to see this, where if I had not been still and paying attention, I would have been missing out on all that He was doing in the different lives there. So it's important to learn to be still, just as it's important to learn to be bold, because I know I've been sitting on a few things lately and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to keep telling you maybe, I'll just do it. And so it's important to listen carefully to the leading of the Spirit on all of it. Absolutely. Right? Whether it's still or bold, because each one can be just as hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And then you mentioned that you're looking for a permanent place.
Yes.
How is that going? What are you looking for?
We're just praying for it. God, I believe He's bringing in so many women, aligning them with me for different roles. And, I know it's just His perfect timing and provision, because we're not in a place where we could actually do that monetarily and within what the world looks at.
Right.
But He can do so much.
Oh, absolutely.
All things are possible with Him. So I'm just expecting that, and I don't know when or how. We just keep doing what we're supposed to do.
Right.
as we're moving, we're actually really adding more to our board, just strengthening more, getting more organization in it, and just so makes to be prepared for what's coming, what I believe is coming.
Right.
Yeah.
And you do have to prepare for it. You have to, like you said, walk every day doing the work that you need to do and be prepared for the work that you know will come. I have really enjoyed sitting here speaking with you today.
Too, Margie. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, the opportunity.
Well, thank you for sharing your ministry. I know we've talked about doing some things together as time goes on, and I'm sure that we will. And for sharing this. Now, we put your website, you said it was womenatthewell.us.
Yes.
What is your Facebook page and things?
It's private, so I have to invite them in. But if they come through the website, email me, and then I can have that conversation with them and get them invited in.
So the website is the main place to go.
Uh-huh.
All right. We can do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it so much.
Yes.
Moving is a big decision. Selling or buying a home in any market, but especially today's, can raise a lot of questions. Hi, I'm Amy with Killingsworth Realty. My husband Todd and I serve the Coweta and local area. Our purpose at our first meeting is to learn your goals, answer questions, and provide resources so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. Find us online at killingsworthrealty.com or call 678-525-0047 to schedule a free consultation today to discuss your real estate needs. You don't have to do this alone.
Hi, this is Margie, the host of Connecting Hearts Network programs. You have just heard a great conversation with Debbie Gronner from the Women of Well in Peachtree City. Her ministry started by her sharing her story and encouraging others to share theirs. So they meet once a month on a Thursday night, and each time someone shares their story and all that God has done through that. You know that I think sharing stories is very powerful. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on the radio encouraging other people to share theirs. I can tell you that for all the years I kept mine to myself, it wasn't useful to anyone else, and all it did was shortchange me on the joys and the life that I could live, and on being able to help others with it. Sharing your story is a very powerful thing. For one thing, if you've been through any abuse or anything else, then it takes power away from those that has held it over you. Secondly, it frees you from all that space that's taken up inside. It helps other people when they are able to hear that they're not alone, that you have gone through something they have. And all of our stories are different. But I know when I did start sharing mine is when women started coming forward, and is what led me to cry out to Jesus to send something to tell them. And that's how our Her Journey group was born. I also know that, sharing my story of being a birth mother has helped other birth mothers that hadn't found it before. And I know from sharing my story, it's helped me not feel alone and me be able to turn it to something good that helps other people. In the Bible, it tells us to comfort others with which we have been comforted. So when you've gone through healing and other things, you share that with people, and that helps them know that it's possible to do. Because let's face it, when we start getting in there and digging out all the details that we haven't wanted to deal with, it can be pretty hard to do. But it's well worth it on the other side. The Bible also tells us in Joshua, after they crossed the Jordan River, they were instructed to make a monument of stones. And the reason for making that monument of stones, it said, was for when their children and their children's children came by those stones and said, what does that mean? Why is that there? Then you share the story of what the Lord had done for Joshua and the people of Israel as he helped them cross the Jordan River. So we're supposed to set up monuments of what God has done to be able to share that with other people. And that helps us as we go through our future trials and things that we have, but you never know what it does for other people that see it. It is important, and you can do that in different ways. But I always tell people when they come on the radio show or they're in one of the groups that we do, that you don't have to share more than you're ready to. But as you share each little bit, then it empowers you to share more. From looking up things online to help you with your mental health, here's a quote from Thoughtful World that says, "Clearly, sharing your story has potential to help someone else feel less alone. Our stories are powerful because they evoke compassion even among strangers. We also create opportunities to understand others better and cultivate empathy towards them." You know, I used to be pretty short on empathy, but the more stories that I hear and how it impacts people, the more I'm able to be empathetic to them. You can share your story in a bunch of ways. I have a friend who's writing a fictional book to illustrate her story. I know some who have written it in a memoir. I kind of have a generational story in my family that I'm going to start putting on pen and paper. A counselor had told my mom to keep journals, that was one of the best ways for her to work out things was to just write it all down in a journal. And I'm big on being able to do that. I love journaling. And being able to have her journals when she passed was, something that all of the family was very happy to have. I've shared my story through a mixed media canvas. It has something that details the things that God has helped me heal from and what I have already gone through. We're going to be working on some of those personal story canvases at the studio sometime soon in the beginning. Research shows that storytelling, such as expressive writing, helps us deal with stressful and traumatic events, and it can have a positive impact on our health. That's because storytelling helps people identify alternative narratives and widen their views of themselves, challenge their unhealthy beliefs, and open them to new mindsets so that they can reflect more accurate and healthy on their personal story and what has happened. And that has happened. I used to, when I had to deal with her, I thought my mom was weak. But the more that I heal through my own traumas and go through things, I realized my mom was very strong. Maybe not in the ways I wish she had been, but she survived a lot. And because I had her journals and things, I was able to understand that and work things out. We have a lady in one of our groups who has used her scrapbooking skills to help another lady share her personal story there. That's kind of what our retreat is going to be about that we have in November, is letting our stories that we've had, not letting the trauma and abuse and other things in our past or even our own poor choices, because I know I've made quite a few of them, define who we are, but let them contribute to who we are and what we do as good, kind humans in this world. So I encourage you to find an outlet to do art, to write it down, to just share it with a neighbor. One of our ladies said after she had shared a little bit with us that she was in a group with other people and she noticed someone was going through an anxiety attack. So she just shared with her how she had been able to cope with her own anxieties over time. So you don't have to share it all, because I know when I did start sharing it, I kind of threw it up on everybody. And then after I got it all out, I was able to refine it and not go into every detail every time that I went to do something. But if you let the Holy Spirit move in you, you'll know what you're supposed to share and who you're supposed to share it with. So I encourage you to follow the Woman at the Well and go to one of their meetings. And the next one, it's always the first Thursday of the month, and you'll be able to find that through their website. I encourage you to come to some of our groups and help us, let us help you work out your story and see how others are using theirs to turn it around for good. It's powerful, this storytelling thing, people, and I encourage you to embrace it, because it may be difficult, but it's well worth the journey on the other side. Until this same time next week, this is going to be Margie signing off.
Shopping for insurance doesn't have to be stressful. I'm Christy, owner of Ellsworth Insurance, located here in Newnan, Georgia. We're an independent agency with access to multiple carriers for home, auto, life, health, and commercial insurance. We're your one-stop shop for your insurance needs. Visit our website at www.insurewithellsworth.com or call the office at 770-755-7053 to schedule an appointment. We look forward to meeting you soon.
Hi, this is Margie, and I want to share a little bit about the Creative Heart Studios and what we have coming up. We have moved to a brick building on the property of Hillcrest Chapel. If you pull up to Hillcrest Chapel and look to the left, you're going to see the back of our building and some garage doors. So you just keep on going and park beside the building, head around the front doors. Or if you need some exercise, come up the steps, and we'll be glad to see you. We hold our groups such as Her Journey and Bible studies and other group opportunities for women to be able to join together, find a little more peace, settle some of their past, work on things that we need to work on to be able to express joy in our life. Our Hero Journey group is designed for women who have been through domestic violence or some sort of abuse. But not all of the participants have been through abuse or domestic violence as we think about it. But we all have something that we need to heal from. And I believe this is one of the best programs I've seen that helps you deal with anxiety, with anger management, with depression, with your view of who you are and who God is. So I encourage you to reach out to us if you think that group might be beneficial to you. But if you don't think that you need Her Journey, we have Bible studies. We have other groups that we're curating to work on. We even had a grown-up ladies Easter egg hunt recently that was so much fun. We have a themed tea party every month and a self-care Saturday. Because let's face it, ladies, we are usually the ones on the back burner. The Bible tells us to love God, love others, and love ourselves. And we do spend so much time loving on others that we rarely leave anything in the picture to nourish our own souls. So we invite you to come, as we have some experts, in art therapy and essential oils and massage therapy and in different things to learn a little bit about taking care of yourself, because it's very important. You can serve others very much more efficiently if you are taking care of yourself and getting your own needs fulfilled. I invite you to join us on our journeys as we go through them and come out and see what we have. Visit our little gift shop where we have self-care items, organic teas, inspirational jewelry, journals, and other things like that. When you shop there, it helps us keep our other groups running. So I hope that we see you soon.
You have been tuned in to Heart to Heart Radio, presented by Connecting Hearts Network, connecting women to resources and one another. Located at 3 Bullsboro Drive here in Newnan. Tune in next week for another episode of Heart to Heart Radio with Margie Conway.
This is Margie from Connecting Hearts Network. I'd like you to take...
Bienvenido a Kaiser Permanente. El doctor ya te puede ver. Verá que aunque eres muy activo, ahora te cansas más rápido de lo normal. Verá que a menudo almuerzas comida rápida.
Próxima ventanilla.
Verá que pones a tu familia primero y tu salud tiende a caer en segundo o tercer lugar. Y claro que verá que tienes el azúcar alto, igual que tu papá. En Kaiser Permanente trabajamos juntos para ver todo lo que tú eres y darte el cuidado que tú mereces. Kaiser Permanente, para todo lo que tú eres.